Oh, hold on. There you go. My mic got turned off.
Yes,
Mic
now I can
check.
hear you.
Mic check. All right. How's that? Is that better?
That's better. It's
All
perfect.
right. So we are joined here today, everyone. We are so excited. We are uh, here on a coaching call with one of our outstanding student investors, Miss Daria Neal.
Mhm.
Miss Daria Neal is come on board with us today, and we're going to talk about uh, being an investor, becoming an investor. It's like one of those movies, becoming an investor. Daria Neal, becoming an investor. All right, and she's going to talk about her background, her experiences working with the Anthony Bolling Group. She's going to share with you the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs. She's going to talk to you about her journey and what we hope to, really illustrate here today is to share with you uh, what it's like to be out here in this marketplace right now. If you're looking for investment properties, and what it's like working with our team, the Anthony Bolling Group, and our leverage resources, and just what that has been about. So, uh, Daria, Ms. Neal, we're gonna get started. Why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, tell our audience about you, your background, how you came to find yourself here working with and being coached uh, by the Anthony Bolling Group.
Sure. Well, thanks, Anthony, for having me on this evening. Yeah, so I am originally from Los Angeles, California, and I've been living in Washington, D.C. for the last 22 years, and had owned property in the past. I own my current home. And my last home, I also had a rental unit as part of that. And so when I moved on, wanted to use the proceeds from that property and invest it in real estate. And really, the motivation was just a bit of skepticism of the stock market. And
Hmm.
we're in a moment right now that I think probably justifies that a bit. I mean, I'm definitely a long-term investor, so I do invest in the market long term, but really wanted to look at other options and diversify because you always hear about the need to diversify, and wanted to use the proceeds to invest in real estate in DC in particular because I've been here for over 20 years and I like the city a lot. I mean, a lot has changed, but I do feel that I've invested a lot of my time, my career. I've worked my entire career here in DC, and wanted to stay. And so I have a good friend who's a real estate lawyer, and I reached out to him and asked him for a referral, and he sent me to Anthony.
Okay,
And
well, that's been great. We love that, Daria. Now, it's okay here on Chasing Gazillions. Our show and our format is an unscripted one where we want, uh, you know, not ordinary, but everyday investors, individuals to be empowered to move and invest in real estate, like you say, here in DC, here in the DMV area. And we want to promote other professionals who are involved in this process. So it's okay to mention the lawyer
yes,
who by the way, is my fraternity brother, and give him his props. If that's how you got here, that's fine. We're happy to share with everyone about our good brother, uh,
Robert
Robert Cooper.
Cooper.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. Yes. So give a shout out to Robert Cooper. That
Yes,
that
definitely shout out to Robert. He has certainly looked out for me, and I trusted him as a friend in the past, as a friend, and I think I went to him, and frankly, I told him what I was interested in doing, and I have friends who are realtors or know of other realtors, but really, I knew I was looking to um, get an investment property, potentially a multi-unit, and I can be a bit stubborn, so I wanted to work with someone who really understood that market, and what I thought at the time were my needs. I think from my first meeting with you, Anthony, I quickly learned that I needed to rethink what my needs and interests were, which
Well,
was
you know
great,
what? That
right?
is a fantastic segue. And before we jump into that first requirements meeting that we had, tell the people, you kind of touched on it. You say you've been here in DC about 22 years in your career and all, but let the people know that, hey, you come to this process of investing. You've had some experiences. You say you bought a property, you owned a rental property, but let's talk about, you know, your baseline qualifications. I mean, who are you educationally, out of high school, no high school? Just where are you now in terms of those kind of accolades when you first come to me? Because there's a point I want to make after you establish your background educationally.
Yep. So, I'm an attorney, and I'm an attorney for the federal government. And I went to law school at UCLA and undergrad at Hampton University,
Hey,
and
you.
HBCUs, definitely in the house. I also am an adjunct professor at the Howard University School of Law.
There you
Um,
go. So
so
we're dealing with someone who has credentials, some training background, and the point I want to make to our audience here on this coaching call is, and when she decided to move forward, she went to other professionals, Robert Cooper, an attorney in real estate, to seek advice and counsel about what she was thinking about, and who, even though she knows some realtors, she said, I know some realtors in the game, but she went to a professional, sought his advice, a trusted advisor, counselor, and said, who should I go to when I want to do that? And then he recommended her, and she accepted that recommendation. That's how you got here. And that's important for people to understand that you shouldn't be embarking on this journey alone.
And that was really from our first meeting what you really impressed upon me, because like I said, my prior property had a rental unit, so I'd been a landlord, and had tenants before, and managed that on my own. So I had to deal with calls with being locked out or backed up plumbing. So I thought I knew something. My first meeting with you, frankly, you said, well, who's your team? And I was like, my team? I was like, I'm talking to you. And you're like, well, do you have your financing lined up? Do you know what kind of insurance you're going to have? Do you have, ABC? And, I had to kind of sit there and be like, well, don't you figure that stuff out later? And you were very quick to disabuse me of that notion.
Well, great. So we have our initial, what I call a requirements initial meeting. I meet a client, a potential client. My goal during that call, which can take from 30 minutes to 3 hours, depends on the individual. But I'm there trying to learn about what you want to do, what you're trying to accomplish. I'm trying to catch up. I mean, I just got here on this call, and you got all these things in your mind about what is you ready to do. You've been referred to me. You're ready to go. And then I start yimmy. Talk to the people about that requirements call. What comes out of it? Is it necessary? Is it just the dude just likes to talk and he just droning on?
It's definitely necessary. I mean, frankly, I thought I would give you a call and tell you this is what I'm interested in. And then you would say, okay, great. We're going to start to look at property. And that would be it. That is not what happened. You asked me a lot of questions about what I was, what I was interested in, what my cash reserves were, my, risk tolerance, but also really tried to educate me, and in a way that, frankly, no one has done before, but in part because I hadn't really sought it out. I think I didn't think of myself. I thought I was an investor, but I really wasn't. I was someone who owned a home that had a rental unit, which I think is different. And so you took the time in that conversation to really educate me on what would be needed to have me think differently about what I could be looking for. So I had thought about multi-unit, but I think from our conversation, it became clear why that was a beneficial approach to take, at least, at the beginning, right? So, to look at that, to be able to balance my risk for loss and the costs. And so it was a real important educational conversation. As I said before, you asked me about, my financing and did I have a lender ready? And, I was like, well, I know of a lender. Like, that is not the right answer. Does your lender, what was it that you said, put money on the street? And so, and what does that mean? So I could ask you questions back, right? Really comfortably. And I don't have to feel like, that I'm wrong for answering or ignorant for answering. It's a real partnership. I think is the way that you've really approached it. So I think that's beneficial. And I know that you have my interests at heart when we go and look, and when you send me listings, and when I talk to you about concerns I have, or anxieties that I might have about the process, to be able to work through that with you.
Fantastic. So now let's touch on a couple. You bring up a couple points here on this journey. Now you talk to Robbie Cooper. You say, I'm thinking about investing. I got a little powder here. I want to do something with it. I've been in the stock market. Market might be changing. Don't know. I want to invest in real estate. You wake up, you know that much. You're ready to go. You get a referral. You talk to this particular real estate agent, professional. You go through the requirements conversation. Now, when do you recall when we first meet? When? Yesterday? A week ago?
It was around April. So it's been about maybe 3.5 months.
Okay, great. 3.5 months. So around April or so, we have this conversation. And then you talk about, looking at properties. We talked about your lender partner. We talked about some other partners who were part of your team. And you were like, hey, okay, fine. I endured this call. Now let's go look at some properties. Is that what we did?
No. No, we did not do that.
Okay. Well, okay. Why didn't we just start right then? I mean, you say 3.5 months. We didn't start looking at properties right then.
Yeah, well, what you did was you sent me listings. So I guess to back up first was to find out what I could get financing for, how much I could get financed, because there's really no point in looking at property if you don't know what you can get financing for. So you can look all day.
Unless you got the money in your pocket and you're gonna be paying all cash.
Yeah, well, that's not me. That was not me. That was not me. So, so I needed to know what I was working with, so that when you sent me listings, I could think critically about it. But also when you and I talked for the first time, you raised, for me to think about, for as far as having tenants, to have a tenant who is using Section 8 vouchers, and to really kind of understand, well, what does that look like? What is, how much does that cover? And when you're looking at a property and the costs that are associated, because you also went into, it's not just the mortgage, but you might have to pay water and maintenance, maintain the property, pest control, things of that nature that
Property
are just
management.
cost, property management, exactly. So building in all of that, and then walking back. Okay, well, if you have a Section 8 tenant, this is what the city will pay for X number of bedrooms. Assuming that's what you get for your units, is that enough to cover all of those costs? And what kind of return do you want each month?
What we call those operating expenses for this
Right.
investment asset that you're going to get.
Right. And so, I mean, and I think it's a good barometer, frankly, because even if I choose not to go Section 8, it gives, I think, for me, a good sense of what might be a reasonable rent in that area, one way or another. And so, you can look at, a listing. You sent me listings that were, once I ran the numbers, there was no, I won't even say profit. Like, I would be paying out still every month. And that's not really, my goal. And
Now, people hear different things, and it creates different images in their mind. I'm second generation Washingtonian. People say Southeast, they see certain things comes to their mind, and all. People hear the word Section 8, certain images come to their mind. As this investor that you're becoming, talk to us about what, quote, Section 8 represents to you as an investor.
Security. I mean, we just come out of, well, it's hard to say we're even out of this pandemic, but during the last couple of years, people, lost their jobs, had to leave their jobs en masse, and weren't able to pay rent. And DC put a moratorium on increasing rents. I believe there were rules related to evictions, which you hope you would never have to do. And so the idea is, if you have a tenant that is, you're sure to get payment from each month, that's a pretty sound investment, I think.
Guaranteed rent.
Yes. And so so that's incredibly attractive, particularly in light of the time that we are emerging from. And yeah, I actually hadn't really thought of it in those terms. And I think another thing that you shared with me was really kind of the, thinking as an investor that my role is as a housing provider. And I thought about that, but not really in those terms. And that, you have the ability to provide safe and comfortable homes for people who are really in need. And I think particularly given the challenges with affordable housing in the city, to be able to help is also a plus.
That's right. So you can do good and make money, and there's no conflict there, morally or otherwise here, right? You're doing good, and it has to make dollars and cents, make sense.
That's right.
And dollar cents. So you come out of this thing, you're talking about developing some way of evaluating these properties, and then you say Section 8 guaranteed rents seem to fall within some criteria, some formula that you are developing as an investor. That's an audience of tenants that you will consider. Because now, talk to people about, you mentioned I'm a long-term investor, and what does that look like? What does that mean to be a long-term, I guess, versus short-term or flipper? Or talk to us about how you develop your investment criteria.
Well, I'm certainly not a flipper. I don't have the time. Frankly, I have a full-time job. So to be a flipper, I mean, you've got to, my understanding is, you've got to be able to, one, have that cash flow immediately ready to go, and your team, your construction team, ready to go if you needed that for renos, and have a really short turnaround so that you put in your money and then be able to sell, in short time. And really, I'm just not in that space. I don't have the time. I like my day job, and my interest really is to, I guess you'd say, diversify my investment portfolio. And I'm, I guess, middle aged. I like to think I'm relatively young, but thinking 10, 15 years out, when I'm, start to consider retirement, what do I want that portfolio to look like? Do I want to be in a position where I have passive income? Do I want to be in a position where I have something that I could then sell and use to help fund my retirement? So for me, longer term made more sense.
Okay, good. So you're developing a criteria by which you are, as an investor, going out into the market looking for opportunities. It was April, it's May. You got your lender partner on board. You understand what your buying power is now. Now that your lender's on board, you know what your buying power is. Now we start looking for properties. You say, I'm sending you listings through the MLF, the multiple listing service. So I have you on these alerts that meet your investment criteria. Is that static? Does that change? Is that evolving?
Oh, it certainly evolves, right? So you would send me listings. I look at the properties. I look at the neighborhoods that they're in. And one thing that I did, because I've been in DC for over 20 years. I'd like to think that I know the city, but I don't know every nook and cranny of the city. And so, where I saw properties from the listing that looked attractive, I went out and looked at them before I, reached out to you to look at the area. I looked early in the morning because,
Come on, talk to them. Put it out there, dear.
Someone driving through a neighborhood at 5 miles an hour definitely draws attention. I wasn't interested in doing that in the peak of the day. So, there's no traffic. You can just kind of, cruise through a neighborhood that you may not be familiar with, get yourself lost, frankly, and see where things take you. And so that was really helpful for me to understand where some of the properties that were coming up in the listing were located, and whether I wanted to own property in that area.
Whether I wanted to own property in that area. Now that rings a bell. Now let's share with the audience, those other persons out there now who are thinking about becoming investors. They see the journey you're on, but let's talk for real about this. Whether or not I wanted to own a property in that area. Let's talk about that evolution from when you first was thinking about buying a property and what you thought was important. Flowers in the front yard, come on. And where you are now.
Curb appeal.
That's right. And where you are now as an investor. Talk to us about those emotions, those feelings about, do I want to buy something in that neighborhood? Talk about that neighborhood.
Yeah, so so curb appeal is a thing. I love to watch the HGTV home reno shows. I mean, that's one of my things. Constantly thinking of design ideas and decor ideas, and so all of that's running through my head. And
that's right.
And so I've lived in DC, like I said, 20 years in different parts of the city. I've lived over near Stadium Armory and near Howard University, and now over in Northeast, and so I have some familiarity. I have less familiarity with east of the river, and so when I was saying earlier, like driving through and trying to figure out like where I'd want to be, that was part of it. Like, let me familiarize myself with a neighborhood that I'm not familiar with. So I know when you send me something, what I'm looking at. When it says, it's, on X street, well, what do I know from that street? and there's only so much a map can really tell you.
Mhm.
And so I found it really helpful to drive through, to learn, separately too, kind of what might be some city plans for different parts of the neighborhoods that may fall within my affordability range, and to take that into account. So there's some parts that are of the city that are up and coming, but I would say, from the listings that I see, that they're still really, really overpriced. We've talked about that. It's like, okay, well, that may be an up and coming area, but if I had Section 8 tenants, it still wouldn't cover the costs. And what would be market rent in that area? Still not enough to cover the cost. And
Mhm.
so it could be that it's an up and coming area. I don't have the ability to just float funds.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
you
right.
know, and so those are factors to take into account. But I think that it's really important for people not to prejudge, and go out and look for themselves. And I think what you were getting at, Anthony, was really just kind of, not necessarily thinking of the new property as a property that I would be living in, and that I would do all of the things that I imagine I would do, from HGTV, right? But if my goal is to provide comfortable, safe, affordable housing, and then that's the goal, and to make a good a return on my investment, then those are the factors. And some of that curb appeal stuff can come later. That's not part of the
Initial evaluation
that's
of
right.
this investment opportunity.
That's exactly right.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know what? But you touched on something else here. I want you to comment on, and that is, so you've been living here in the city 22 years. You kind of know some neighborhoods, some areas you haven't been. You're working with, the Anthony Bolling Group. I'm always talking in third person, like it's me, but I do have resources I'm leveraging, so it's not just me. So, but the point is, you're going out, you're looking at property, you're getting a list, you're going out, you're kind of looking at neighborhoods, you're riding around. Uh, I I've been. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hey, Jeff. Good. I'm on a coaching call. I've been waiting for your call, but I got. Let me call you back at 6 o'clock. Fantastic. Thank you, brother. All right, bye. I know it's the middle of coaching call, but I'm sorry. I was waiting for his call. So, but here's the thing. I want you to talk about. I've been doing this since my junior year at the University of Virginia. I've been a licensed real estate professional. We're talking about 35 years or something. You've been here, you've been living your own. I'm doing this with multiple clients every day. You said, hey, I work for the federal government every day. This is not what I do every day. Does it get overwhelming? Does it get confusing? Is it a lot? And what did you do to sort of help bring some order to this process?
Yeah. So initially, after we first met, you sent me listings, and I wasn't seeing anything that really jumped out at me. And frankly, like, not communicating was like, there were with you just made me feel like, okay, well, does he know that I'm actually looking at these listings and that it doesn't work for me? Or so
And
the
how are you
silence
feeling
was
about that? How are
so that was
you
very
feeling?
uncomfortable for me, because I didn't feel like, um, you know, I didn't necessarily feel like I was making progress. And I felt like I needed to have a conversation with you, a check in from time to time, to make sure, one, you knew that I'm still looking and interested, and also why the properties that I'm being sent weren't working for me, and what concerns I might have had about them. And so that was, as far as like our relationship, that led to us having regular calls. I think we talk, once a week. And
What?
Yes, we talk once a week, as a check-in, and so I can ask you questions. You can ask me questions. I think we even got to a point because I was frankly feeling a bit discouraged because, like a month of looking, I think you said, after a month, I hadn't seen anything yet. And I was very frustrated. and and so we talked about reassessing the types of properties that I'm looking at. So making adjustments. So I found those conversations to be helpful to move me along on my path. I will say kind of separate from that, because you asked about it being overwhelming and how I organize. So,
Sure.
Our conversations, were one thing, but I also started to create like an Excel sheet with the properties that I did like, and would like have the address, the asking price. I'd also include like, what the Section 8 rents would be for that property. And I also kind of estimated what the monthly costs would be, and then had like a column that had notes in it. So I could see, okay, this might work, or maybe this won't work. Because the listings, when they come in, kind of add on to each other. And so it's really easy to go back. And I think we did this, there was one property that was really beyond what I should be spending, but I liked it. It looked good. It was multi-unit, looked good. I knew the numbers weren't going to work, but I would keep seeing it in the list. And so I put it on my chart. And so I could see what all of the numbers were and why it wasn't going to work. And
why
then I
the
also
numbers, why the numbers were telling you this doesn't meet my investment goals.
That's right.
Even though you say you really like it.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so so it helped, and we talked about it too. We talked about this particular property, and it was helpful to take the emotion out of the process. Because one thing, we don't talk about emotion a lot, but I mean, buying property, I think, can be an emotional process. But if you're an investor,
well, I'm not a computer now. I show some feelings.
I didn't say you didn't have feelings. I'm talking about
emotions.
Right.
Well, a lot of people say I'm kind of over the top. Talk too loud.
No,
I'm all right.
Yes, you're fine. You say what you mean. You make it very clear when we talk. What information you want to make sure I understand. And so, if it means repeating it a couple of times to make sure, hey, yeah, you say you keep going back to this property over here in Northeast, but aren't we looking at operating costs?
I keep going back to what you say are your investment goals.
Right. And like, has that changed? Like, no, that has not changed. Okay, well, why are we still talking about this property? Because it looks nice and doesn't meet your goals. So all of that really is irrelevant, frankly. And so, so that's good. And so I like this spreadsheet. I'm not an Excel expert. I know a lot of people hate Excel. I keep it very, very basic, but it's a way for me to organize, like, what is it that I looked at closely? And then why did I discount it? And so if I ever see it again, or I might think about it again, I can look at my chart and be like, oh yeah, no, keep it moving.
Okay, great. So we want to avoid analysis paralysis. You say you met Bolling back in April. It's July. I mean, does he ever stop just sending you something? Do you ever actually make an offer? Look to make an offer? Do you actually go out and see a property? I don't know. You said it's been 3.5 months. Have you already bought a property? Where are you now in this process? Other than bowling and you meeting once a week and just jaw jacking and analyzing.
Yeah, so we have looked at a property, and just recently, and frankly, it was one that you had identified,
Hold
given
on.
my
Before you go to
needs.
that one, don't forget about Hobart and what I send over. What and that's a
Oh,
good
yes,
thing.
yes, yes.
That's a good segue here. He's
Yeah.
sending you listings. My mama's a realtor. She could be sending you listings. What's special about Ball? Is he sending you anything else? I mean, Jesus, you doing your own spreadsheet. My God, this dude, is he doing anything?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so yeah, yeah, you mentioned Hobart. So
That's right.
the other thing is, the benefit, one of your expertise, your long time experience in the city, and the relationships that you have. And so, which I think is important. I'll say from like my past experience looking for my primary residence, my last one was, put an offer on before it hit the market. That goes to the experience and relationships that your realtor has. And so, Anthony definitely has that and demonstrated that when he came to me with a property that that wasn't listed, is not on the market, but he knew the owner, who's also an investor, and what this owner's interest may be, and presented it to me, ran the numbers to be able to show me whether this was going to meet my investment objectives, and explain that, at a particular offer price that it could or would. And so we talked through that, and I gave the okay to reach out to the property owner, with an offer to see if he would be interested. And he said no.
Oh my God. He said no.
He said no.
Oh, well, then you were done, right? I mean, he
There's
said
nothing
no,
else
it
for
was
me to
over.
do.
This whole process is done then. If he
Well, the
said
whole
no,
process is not over. You just move on to the next thing.
oh,
And yeah,
okay.
you move on to the next. But what was important, I think, from that was one, um, you're constantly looking and thinking about the needs of your client, and if there might be an opportunity that will meet your client's needs. So, that's why you presented Hobart to me as a potential option. The latest property you also identified and laid out, what the numbers were, and how it could meet my investment objectives. And I, looked at it online, the MLS listing that you sent to me, looked at the neighborhood, and I will say I'm always suspicious when there are no interior photos of a property. It's like,
Okay.
if there's no interior photos, that means
That's a
something.
trigger. That's like,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Why don't you want to show me the inside of your house?
right.
Um,
And that's
but
something I've shared with you that if it's on the MLS and it has more than 20 photos, because on the MLS we can put 150 or more photos. And my experience is that an agent who puts a lot of photos has a quality product that he wants you to see everything, so that when you get to the property, you just are confirming what you've seen. But the converse is only 2 photos. uh I'm not saying it's a dog, but this might not be love, which represents an opportunity for an investor.
right,
Right.
right.
So you
So
didn't see a lot of photos.
didn't see a lot of photos, um, but the not even the list price, but even it could meet my investment objectives when we ran the numbers, and so I decided, let's go look at it. Let's go look inside, and we did that. and it needed a lot of work. And I'm not afraid to hire someone to do the work. I'm
Get
not
somebody
afraid
else
of
on the team, get a contractor.
right. I'm not afraid of reno. Um, but it costs. And so the great thing, walking through with you, Anthony, was, afterwards we continue to talk about the property and what it would need. And, you just don't have investor contacts, you have, contractor contacts to be able to say, hey, I know this contractor, I work with this contractor who works with my other clients, and we can get a good estimate of what it would cost and then figure out if we can make the numbers work and back into an offer. And so again, kind of going back to like shifting your thinking from being just a homeowner looking for a home to an investor looking for an investment. It's okay. Well, you want to know all of the information before you make the offer. I mean, my past experience was, oh, okay, this is what the seller is asking for, and I qualify for this, so that's what I'm going to do. But this is very different, right? It's, you got to look at all of the line items that you want to meet, and does it meet your objective, and at what threshold could you make an offer for it to meet all of those objectives. And we have to figure that out. So we're in the process of doing that, and and may put an offer, but if it may not, and it may not get accepted if we did. And if that's the case, just move on.
But what we offer is what you feel is the value of this property, the return you're going to get, and what it's worth to you, without regard to what the seller wants. Sellers want what they want, but we can only offer what we can offer.
Right.
Now they might be the same, but they might not be.
Yep.
There you go. And so even there, have you, okay, you rock solid. We know all we need to know. Are we still evolving? Are we learning? Are we adding more people to our team as we go along? Where are you now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we started out the process, I mean, I recognize that, there's, you'll get a property and it's not going to be perfect. And it, may need some basic cosmetic, upgrades, new appliances, paint, carpet, or, things like that. And so it was prepared for that level of maintenance up front. What we saw recently was not what I was anticipating. Not that, again, what I'm not afraid of taking on a gut reno, which is what this property was going to require.
Right,
but
right. I mean, we can tell the people. We looked at a property, we ran the numbers, looked like we're talking about over $200K in renovation. And when we looked at that and the acquisition numbers and this, that, and the other, the margin of return was getting really thin. And so when you saw that, you went back to your return objectives. And that's how, again, you are making the determination about whether or not we're going to continue to pursue it or not. It's not emotions. It's, hey, this is just not giving me what I want. If I'm deploying these monies as an investor, this is the kind of return I'm looking for. And if the property can't achieve it, it's just not the property for me. Right. How do you feel about that, though?
Well, it's, how do I feel about it? It is what it is, right? I mean, because I love it. It is what it is. And certainly I'm at a different place than I was when we first met.
There you go.
I'm not, I like the idea of that property because of its location and potential.
Yes.
I also recognize that I might have to walk away, and that's fine, because I can't overextend myself. I have clear objectives that I'm trying to accomplish. And if I focus on those objectives,
Yes.
then it really does mute the emotion that you might feel towards any particular property.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Well, what a journey it has been to this point. Daria, dare to be bold with Daria Neal. I love it. I love it. I greatly appreciate this time that you shared with us here on this coaching call with Anthony Bolling, chasing gazillions, not the same as making millions. This episode, we have. It's been a joy working with you to this point, getting to know you, helping you along this journey. It's not over
No?
until we get the property. But I greatly appreciate that you took time out of your day today to stop, share with people about your journey here. We're certainly going to come back when we do get the property and
Yes.
tell them where we picked it up from here and what it's like when we're celebrating the acquisition of your property. We know that's going to happen here soon, very soon. And so as we wrap up, as we close out, dear, I know you federal government, so but share with the audience anything in closing about you. You want them to know about you. You got any special interests, hobbies, whatever. Uh, Talk to the people.
Oh, special. You know, I I'm just an everyday person. I mean, I don't want to minimize like all of what I do, but I'm out here working like a lot of folks, and I'm really just I'm looking to have a really comfortable retirement. And so what do I need to do to make that happen? I've got probably another 15, ideally 15 years working. I don't want to be working into my 70s. And so, I think a lot of folks would like to have flexibility and options, and that's what I'm looking for. So, um, this seems like a real viable opportunity. Like I said, I like to watch those home reno shows. So, um, the idea of being able to fix up something and to make it special
Yeah,
is also something that I'm excited about doing, even in an investment property. And this is really a first step for me, in being very intentional, being an
mm,
intentional landlord, so to speak. And my hope is that perhaps it just grows from here, and I can do more. But baby steps.
baby steps. Well, we love it. Well, we're excited to be a part of it. Thank you so much for giving the Anthony Bolling Group an opportunity to be of service to you. It's certainly been our honor. It's a privilege for us. That's how we view it. We know that what's important in this process is the people, you, and the service that we provide to you. So thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody out there, hey, my thing. Hey, I'm Anthony Bolling Group, and our leverage relationships are going to save you time and make you money.
Make money.
So bye for now. All the best. Take care.
Thanks,
I think
Anthony.
you're very welcome, Daria.
Yes.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. All
All
the best.
right. Take care.
All right. Bye.